Okay. Let's call the roll. Dr. Hubbard. Here. Dr. Gilbert.
Here.
Dr. Ali.
Here.
Mr. Kimsey.
Here.
Professor Mena.
Here.
Professor Lepaski.
Here.
And Ms. Wright.
Here.
Here. Okay, we do have a quorum. All committee members of the State Anatomical Advisory Committee are present. And we want to thank them for, again, on behalf of the commission. And I could also say for the entire state of Texas for taking on this momentous task. We'll go ahead and have an invocation. And let's see, Mr. Valley, could you lead us in our invocation, sir?
Yes, sir. I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Most gracious Heavenly Father, we're indeed thankful of this day and all the blessings that you bring upon us. We ask, Lord, that you watch and care over our world as we are in turmoil. And we ask for leadership and guidance in your will and not those of man. These things we ask in Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay, we could go ahead and stand for our pledge of allegiance to the U.S. and Texas. You had to go to Texas. Okay. We'll go ahead, Mr. Hubbard. You want to lead us on the U.S. Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
and to the
and to the
republic for
republic
which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the Texas Pledge.
I don't know.
Okay. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, indivisible. Yes. Say again. All right, thank you. All right, we can get seated and move forward with our rest of our meeting here. The purpose of the state anatomical, sir. Oh, okay. The purpose of the State Anatomical Advisory Committee pursuant to Texas Health and Safety Code, section 691.002A. It reads, Texas Health and Safety Code, section 691.002A provides the State Anatomical Advisory Committee is established to advise and provide expertise to the Texas Funeral Service Commission on matters related to the regulation and operation of will body programs, non-transplant anatomical donation organizations, and anatomical facilities in the state of Texas. We'll go ahead right now and allow our committee members to introduce themselves to each other and to the public. And we'll start right here and we'll move around and then we'll hop back over here and catch Mr. Kimsey. And then we'll get our three members that are remote with us this morning.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Aaron Ali, I'm the CEO of Laboratory Anatomical NATO organization here in Texas.
I'm John Hubbard. I'm a instructional professor at Texas A&M University and the sitting chair of the Anatomical Board of the state of Texas.
I'm Kerry Gilbert, a professor at Texas Tech University Health Science Center, program director for the DPT program, and senior managing director for Institute of Anatomical Sciences, which houses our will body program.
Okay.
And a member of the State Anatomical Board.
Yes, thank you for that.
I'm Dylan Kimsey. I'm the Director of Quality Assurance for Science Care, soon to be Regional Lab Director of our Texas facility starting next week.
Okay. All right. Professor Mena.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Mena. I am faculty at the Mortuary Science program here at San Antonio College.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Ms. Wright.
Hi all, I am Bethany Wright. I'm the National Sales Director of National BioSkills Laboratory Facilities. We have a location here in Dallas.
Okay, thank you for that. And Mr. Lepaski.
Good morning, everybody. I apologize, my camera's not cooperating this morning, but I am Cody Lepaski, and I am president at Commonwealth Institute of Funeral Service in Houston.
Okay, is it possible that you can pop that camera on just once here, and then if you have to pop it off? Okay, thank you, sir, for the record. Okay, thank you. Now, in today's meeting, we do have some extremely special guest. The members, the commissioners rather, of our, two of them are with us. Yes, two of them are with us, with the, Texas Funeral Service Commission. Two of our commissioners are with us. And we'll start with our chair, if he can unmute himself and introduce himself to our committee members here. Okay, we'll see if he can get off me. Maybe he had to walk away for a phone call. But we do have another esteemed commissioner with us from the great city of San Antonio. Commissioner Tips, you want to introduce yourself and bring us greetings and
Absolutely.
instructions if possible from the commission.
I'm Kristen Tips with the Texas Funeral Service Commission. I've had the honor of serving for one term and reappointed for a second term. This is exciting for me to learn what you all are doing, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say. And everyone serving on this committee, I want to say thank you on behalf of the commission. Your input is very important. Your opinions are valued, and speak up, don't hold back, because the citizens of the state of Texas are relying on you, and so are we. So thank you very much for being here and for serving.
Thank you so much. Okay, next on our agenda, we have public comment. We will limit comments to 3 minutes per person. Is there any public comment at this time? Okay, we have no public comment at this time. Now, we are operating under the statutes of the Texas Open Meetings Act. And I want to ask Ms. Haynes on the chat, do we have an ability to turn off the chat? Okay, to make sure that we don't have any ex parte discussion outside of the open meeting here, because we have opened it up for public comment. All right, now committee members, we have a few things we have to do this morning. One, our staff attorney will give some overview of the open government training about the Open Meetings Act, Administrative Procedures Act, Public Information Act, any other type of acts that are out there. Okay, I'll have a few introductory remarks for you after that. You'll have to elect a presiding officer. This is a requirement under the Texas Government Code. And we'll have a short overview of the and training of the Senate Bill 2040, which sort of got this thing going. All right. And we'll close with a few pointers on rulemaking process. We want to get some recommendations from you on agenda items for the next committee meeting, any concerns that you may have going forward about the process, about the policy. We want to hear those as well, and we'll discuss date, time, and location of the next meeting. So at this time, I will turn this over to Staff Attorney Sarah Hartsville for all the open government training on all these acts. So you're on.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I hope y'all are doing well. Just a few housekeeping items, I guess, in regards to open government. Since now you do serve on an advisory committee, that doesn't make you a public member and subject to these acts. By statute, you all are required to do a training that is on the Office of Attorney General's website. They have 2 training videos available, one that covers the Open Meetings Act, the other that covers the Public Information Act. after this meeting, I will, I or Mr. White will send you an email with the links to that. You have 90 days to get that completed from when you were appointed. So I believe that is January 22nd. Ideally, I would love you to do that before January 22nd, not last minute. Once you complete the video, there's a certificate that you can print out and sign. I will ask that you get that to us. And again, we'll put all that in the email so that will help you with what your action items need to be. Just some like basic, I'm not gonna go over everything. I know we do, are you able to share that presentation? It's the State Anatomical Advisory Committee. For those here, it's the one that has the black front, the State Anatomical Advisory Committee. Oh, y'all's just white. Okay, so it's the State Anatomical Advisory Committee, Open Government Law. Ms. Haynes is about to share that for those who are on Zoom. But one of the big things is anytime that there is a quorum of advisory members, and that may mean that y'all might be in a social gathering, it may be here, but it has to be public. And if any, what's the word? If there's any deliberation or discussion that involves anatomical specimen or cadavers where 4 or more people are together, it could be a violation of the Open Meetings Act if that area where you are discussing or meeting was not posted on the Texas Register or on our commission website. And so this, go to slide, can you actually go to slide 10 for me? So one of the things that is, that I was also refreshed in looking at all this last night was what's called a walking quorum. And I'm so sorry, that's gonna be slide 12. So basically it's where there's less than a quorum, but then you discuss official business and then talk about that with other members. And so an example of that is, next slide, Maria, is where like if there's, let's say 5 of you are at a reception dinner, maybe it's, I don't know what all the associations are for anatomical facilities and all that, but let's just say it's a big conference and 2 or 3 of y'all happen to be together talking about this. Maybe there's something we're like, you know what, maybe we need to change our rule on this. And so y'all talk about it. And then from that, you let other people know that are on the committee. That in of itself could be considered it could fall under the open meeting and a quorum because you're discussing official business. And so that's just where you have to be really careful, even in social functions, on social media, of what you say with committee members. And so when I'll get this PowerPoint email to everyone, so you have a copy of it just to kind of look over, to have on hand. Can you go to slide 15 for me? Because there are some like just best practices. And so if you just kind of want to go through some of this, like to avoid a walking quorum, please don't meet in small groups to discuss anything that would be considered committee business. Be careful what you send over email or text messages. I know it's really easy. Just be like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? And then from there, you send it out to groups. So also be careful of group text messages. Same thing again about.
And with that, we are in the process of getting dedicated email accounts for you to keep some of this, if not all of it, off of your personal email. Okay. All right. And so be advised, we have the 7 accounts. We just need to get them to you and get them structured. We're working on that, or have finished working on that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Yes.
Oh, sure, no, you're good. And then the last one I thought was also interesting is like, even if you were talking one-on-one with a committee member, but if you're trying to get feedback or comments, this could be considered polling for an informal, like might be considered an informal vote on an issue. So again, just err on the side of caution, would be the best practice. If when in doubt, don't. And that kind of then leads to.
Let me ask you, counsel, people having value policy discussions, is how should that look, you think?
so like, for example, like if you're at a panel and all that, and there's a moderator and someone's asking, I think that works, or,
Okay.
I may need to follow up on that,
Okay.
on the policy of what
Okay.
that would look like.
She brings up good points, and this is not to squash good policy discussions that you may have, but it's just how you get into them, okay? That you have to be conscious of, and I think what she's laid out here, social media, I'm not gonna tell you what someone back home told me what it is, but just watch it. Okay, it's interesting.
Well, I guess too, like, as long as it's not, and be careful where it's more like you're taking deliberative action. So if it's
Yes.
an idea and all that, that's fine because you're not saying, okay, this is how it's going to be. But if you're trying to bounce ideas off, but then I would recommend bringing it to commission staff. And if we need to have like if it seems to raise enough concerns where we need to have an advisory meeting over that, that way we can go through our steps of posting and having like a public meeting over that.
Sarah, would a way to look at this be to have the freedom to discuss, but then disseminate? In other words, if, I don't know, Dr. Ali and I had a conversation about something that seemed to be relevant to the committee, that's the way that things get done. So if he and I say, hey, this might be interesting, we could then send that to you or Mr. White and it get disseminated to the committee for discussion.
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, that
You're not limiting our discussion amongst each other. We have a phone call. It's the fact that we're not pushing it out as an agenda or let's execute this kind of thing amongst each other unless that's brought to a public meeting like this.
yes and no. This is where it's like a lot of gray area too, because like he was saying, you want to have effective policy discussions. But if it's like something that we have specifically put on an agenda and you didn't discuss it here, even though we had the opportunity, but then behind the scenes, you're like, okay, let's do this and this and this. So it's really the whole idea is trying to keep open government, public involvement in it. And it could be where we need, I'll get more input on that. Because a lot of this is still new to me. So I'll get some more and I think too, when y'all look at the training from the Attorney General's office, it's probably gonna become a little clearer. I know there were several judicial decisions that came out during the interim too, and I think all that's addressed. I just did not have time to go and put all that together. But I'll follow up, and if there's anything after that we're still unclear, I'll make sure that that's distributed to everybody.
Thank you.
For example, if there was just a question about, and I'm just thinking, if Dr. Ali had a question about, how anatomy labs, procure their specimens from the whale body program, for example, and he were to call, seek that question from, let's say Dr. Gilbert in Texas Tech, okay? What I would like in that scenario, what I would suggest is, always using myself or Ms. Hartsfield as a conduit for that, okay? Because I think what Ms. Hartsfield is saying, if you believe this is something that will become official business, okay? Because you do have folks out there, this is what they do for a living, they try to trip you up on stuff, right? Okay, if you think it's going to become part of official business, and we trust you on that. Yes, Dr. Hubbard.
Well, yeah, playing on this, and I don't
Yes.
want to elaborate the point, Dr. Ali calls me and asks,
Yes.
can you transfer 4 bodies to me? That has nothing to do with the committee
Absolutely.
business or the commission.
That's what we're
We
getting.
can have those discussions.
Right.
How do you embalm a body?
Mm,
We have a formula, Dr. Gilbert has one, that has nothing to do with this committee or
Absolutely.
discussion.
Absolutely.
What temperature do you freeze a body? That has nothing to do with it. So we can continue professional discussions. But if it's something that relates to the committee or the business of the committee, it needs to be within the committee proper.
Right, yes,
For transparency.
transparency.
And I should have started with that definition of, we just pulled up the definition for deliberation, so. Which is a verbal or written exchange between a quorum of government body and or another person regarding the jurisdiction of. So in the context of advisory committee, if it's something y'all have jurisdiction over and how things are run, or maybe like if it has to do with authorization of forensic science facilities, or whether the handling of certain anatomical specimen after it's been used for training, whether that constitutes abuse of corpse, those kinds of things would be considered potential like business, because it's what you all have advisory jurisdiction over. So that kind of help. Makes sense. Let me just see. Maria, can you go to slide 6 for me? And then just also again clarifying a quorum is the majority of the advisory committee, or and then the quorum has to meet to make official action. So if there are 2 or 3 of you all that are meeting to discuss something, that can't be seen as official action because it's not a quorum. And so that's kind of that last point. If there's less than a quorum, then, we can't do anything, which is also why it's important if we do conduct Zoom meetings and whatnot, where we actually make sure that the person is present. I think that there are, I think the only other thing for that is there can be criminal penalties involved, which is why the training is so important. So, can you go to slide 21, Marian? On slide 21, and again, we'll have this emailed out, including the links, but there is the link to the video where you can watch the open government training. There you go. And then we have like best practices on there too. We do want to keep.
Well, I think we just allow them to get to the OAG training. And if they have any other questions from a legal standpoint, they can definitely reach out to you. But I think we've treated it well, and we're not trying to bust up any sound professional discussion. It's just that we want to provide them with the tools to make sure that they're not running afoul of any conspiracy issues. Okay. Good.
Just real quick, Public Information Act, and this is why Mr. White also mentioned that we're trying to get you all official emails to use for this. And now again, because you are a member of advisory board, you're subject to the Texas Public Information Act, which means there's an assumption that most everything we do is considered public information. There are exceptions where things fall within the confidentiality, like we can't release social security numbers or release driver's license information. I think I know there's certain things on trade secrets, that kind of stuff. But in general, I would recommend, just probably operate within the assumption that someone in the news is going to get it. And so just anytime you do text or emails, that could be subject to a public information request. Until we get you all official emails, if you use personal cell phones or personal emails for official business, when we get a public information request, you will have to conduct a search on that. Then we usually have a time sensitive requirement. It's usually like a 10-day. Once we get the request, we have 10 business days in which we have to respond. And so if you get any kind of email or text, because somebody might email you directly, it doesn't have to say this is a public information request, but if it says like, hey, we're wanting to know how many NATOs are registered in Texas, well, that might be something that could be considered a public information request. So just please forward that to me as soon as you get it, even if you're not sure about it. That way Mr. White and I can look at that, interpret that, and see whether that starts the 10-day clock going. And then there will be, and then we'll give guidance once we do, categorize and all of that. They're my favorite things. And then the only other thing, I guess, and this will tie into the rulemaking, I think that we're diving into next is, so the next thing is, Texas has an Administrative Procedure Act. That's what the State Anatomical Board, and the commission has to implement rules on how, once we get things by statute, how we're to administer that, operate, so that we're running effectively. Maria, can you go to slide 24? So the Administrative Act defines a rule as a statement of general applicability made by a state agency, or in this case, well, which we all will be recommending as an advisory committee, where we're implementing, interpreting, or prescribing law or policy, or describes a procedure or practice requirement of a state agency here in the commission. And so there are several, you can go to the next slide. There are several sources. It could be statutory changes, which is what the basis is. And that's what I've kind of, those who are on Zoom, we'll pull this up in a minute, but I've gone through Senate Bill 2040 and just kind of outlined what specific direction we've received from the legislature on rules that we need to make, that you all will need to make. And then it could, and then there's some other places as well. Go ahead and go to slide 28. And Mr. White, I think this is where I'm going to let you take over on the rulemaking process. But this kind of just has a chart of how all of this process works and pursuant to the Procedure Act. And I didn't know if you wanted to go from there on the rule from here.
Well, you know, in a few minutes, we will definitely get a sense from the committee members on how they want to approach this, okay? But the idea is, we know how a bill becomes a law, right? And the legislature writes and passes statutes, proposed statutes, and the governor signs them into law or vetoes them, okay? And so, in the bill, you know, when you read through a bill, you see where there's express rulemaking authority, okay? And that's where the authority of the commission, those are the 7 commissioners of the Funeral Service Commission. But with that, that's where, you know, you grade 7 folks on this committee will provide advice because of your expertise in this policy area, okay? Now, there are situations currently, and there will be some in the near future as we really dive deep into these drafting these rules. We'll be in a situation where, you know, it should be policy at some level, statute or rule, but we just haven't been provided that express rulemaking authority. Okay, and so every 3 months, the first legislative report is due tomorrow to statewide leadership, the committees that have jurisdiction over this matter. And we'll be providing recommendations that, hey, look, you know, in the process of looking at our rules, we didn't have rulemaking authority. We need something here. We need a you know, something done with the statute to give us the rulemaking authority to provide more direction to folks throughout the state. So, so as you see here, it's a very involved process. Once y'all get us a draft, and I think conceptually, as you guys go through your advice on the rules, you know, there will be opportunities for the public to weigh in. There'll definitely be opportunities for the commissioners to learn what you're doing. Matter of fact, some will be involved in these meetings. And then once we get a draft, we get that to our commissioners for their review. And as you see here, here's the process, okay? And so, I have a lot of confidence in this body. We've worked closely with some of you in the past, and, I think we're gonna have a very good draft, for our commissioners and for Texas at large. We just kind of open it up to see if you guys have any questions or comments on what we've laid out thus far.
Let me have a
Yes, sir.
question, if I may, on the rules and the
Okay.
purpose of this committee.
Okay.
In one of the earlier versions of the statute, it read that the commission would not adopt rules that were not recommended by the advisory committee. That was removed from the final version.
Okay.
So if this committee works and laboriously produces a set of rules, they go to the commissioners.
Mhm.
The commissioners then decide, we're gonna adopt this one, I don't like this one, or what is that process going to be?
Well, yes, well, we're kind of going through that process ourselves, Ms. Hartsfield and Allison. So, that's part of the process, okay, is that, they're the President Truman, so to speak, the 7 commissioners, and the buck stops there. But let's dive a little bit deeper in the process, if we could, Dr. Hubbard. Conceptually, I think, as we are drafting these rules, okay, we are also involving the commissioners. So they're seeing the drafts as they progress, okay? And we will learn if they want us to go back and look at something else, okay? Or they don't want us to go back and look at something else. So we'll learn, I think we'll learn that. And I think if this works the way I think it conceptually works, when we get that draft, that final draft to the commissioners, I think there will be few, if any, alterations. But that's why we have the meetings, because we don't know. So I think, and that's part of tying in with Ms. Hartsfield and her brief discussion over the Open Meetings Act and not running afoul that if we keep this out front and keep it transparent, okay, I think that helps us get the feedback. This is one reason why we're so glad that we have Ms. Haynes on board with us. She just makes computers talk and she just looks at them. She makes them do whatever we want them to do. And so we have these meetings on Zoom. We will have them warehoused or somewhere on YouTube where people can go back and look at them, and then they can weigh in to us with ideas as we go forward. Okay, so I think it's this moving process of you guys laying suggestions and drafts out, people getting input from us, you guys going back and looking at the rules, the drafts, and getting a consensus for us to move forward. So that's how I'm conceptually thinking about it, Dr. Hubbard.
So when we recommend a rule, present it to the commissioners. The commissioners vote to accept it or not accept it. If they accept it, then it moves forward to the governor's office review.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yes and no. It goes to the governor's office.
Well, we would not, in this process, everyone's talking, okay, everyone's collaborating. I don't think, to your point, I don't think we would want to, it sounds correct, it sounds right, overly surprise my commissioners if something gets over to the governor's office in a formal manner and there's something wrong. So yes, so to your point, and folks from the governor's office, they're kind of watching these things too, okay? And so I'm just really confident with how our commissioners assembled this group, the group of you. I'm looking at all the great people that are signing on, and they will have suggestions, okay? And we will get to a point where we can get something that's good policy, first of all, that respects decedent patients and values decedent patients, because that's really why we're here, is protecting them and protecting the public and getting that over to the commissioners. Go ahead.
And I understand, I just want to make sure that the members of the committee understand their role.
Yes.
Is that we are going to make recommendations in concert with them, but it's the commissioners
Yes.
that vote to approve them and move them
Move
forward.
Yes,
Not the members of this committee.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And that's consistent with the statute.
Right.
Okay. Yes, Dr. Gilbert.
So during the sunset process with SAB, if I understood correctly, once the new statute came into effect, then my understanding was that the rules that exist under the State Anatomical Board were wholesale going to be brought over to be able to serve almost immediately underneath TFSC.
Yes.
Is that true or is that not
That
true?
is absolutely correct. So in the wisdom of the legislature with the sunset review, as we're going through this 1 year transition, we are operating under the existing State Anatomical Board rules.
To the extent it doesn't conflict with the new one, Senate Bill 2040.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Because, the innovations in SB 2040, as Dr. Hubbard has reminded me, we have real good definitions. What is a non-transplant anatomical donation organ? What is an anatomical facility? And then what they have to do right now in order to get the appropriate approvals or registration in order to do the work they wish to do in Texas. So to the extent, as Ms. Hartzler says, it does not conflict with the statutory language that went into effect on 1 September of this year. The State Anatomical Board rules are in effect. So for example, when we have to take on new anatomical facilities, okay, we want to get out there within 60 days, get our eyes on them, and we're following those anatomical facility standards that are in that rule now for their compliance.
So effectively, when we begin talking about rules and this committee's looking at making suggested edits, we're working from the existing rules. We're not starting with a blank sheet of paper.
Well, I'm gonna be like my attorney, yes and no. Obviously, and this is where I guess I'll brag and say, as a PhD in political science, no constitution or governing document really starts fresh. It's probably a working document of another existing document, okay? So to the extent that there are good things that we can continue and the efficiency of the process, maybe we keep those things. But understand, and let's get real philosophical here. I don't think generally, in listening to some of your comments in previous discussions, I do think we're in new territory. And I do think that many of you, all of you believe, and maybe some of the folks in Zoom land, that we don't want to perpetuate certain practices and shibboleths of the past. Okay, and we're looking at that all as well. So obviously, what is already on paper, we should look at that as a starting point. But I would say, and especially with my valued discussions with each of you one-on-one, there's some things that we need to do. And again, the Texas Funeral Service Commission, that includes these great 7 folks up here. We are about protecting the public and valuing the respect and decency of that decedent patient. Okay, and I think that's our goal.
Sure, and I think we would all agree with that. That's why the 7 of us are here. So
Yes.
I don't think there's any argument there. my understanding of process though, is that when we submit these to the office that takes them and makes them look nice so that they can be public commented, there's a strike through and then there's a highlight and there's a change. That's
Yes.
you. And
Yes.
so my point I'm trying to make is we're gonna start, if we strike something, it's gotta be stricken and it's gotta, when we turn it in to get it changed, it's gonna have to be tracked.
Yes.
And so
Right.
we effectively are editing the document of the rules, but we can change it any way we feel like we need to with the approval of the commission. Is that a fair statement?
With the consensus of your colleagues. Go ahead.
So yes and no, because right now where the rules for the anatomical board is housed is under a separate chapter, or excuse me, part, which is labeled anatomical board of the state of Texas. So since that has been transferred over to the commission, what we'll probably do is create a whole chapter or something like that for anatomical. And so just basically paste everything there. So it will probably look like everything being struck out of that or just repealed. Will probably be the easiest way logistically to do it, but I'm not saying like we're repealing all of it and never using any of it. It's just for administrative purposes, it'll be easier to do that and then just put what y'all want to keep. We'll keep, and then what we need to build off of.
Makes sense.
But just so that everyone's clear, like in Senate Bill 2040, it does say all rules of the Anatomical Board of the state of Texas are continued in effect as rules of the Texas Funeral Service Commission until superseded by a rule of the Texas Funeral Service Commission. So that's what we're operating under. So back to him, a yes and no, like those that y'all think are good practices you want to keep, but I think it's also an opportunity for a fresh start. We're like, you know what, there were some things that we really would have loved to fix, we just felt confined by. Now's the time to get those best practices in
That makes
place.
But what we would say, members, bring your ideas to the table for everyone to digest. And for our members that are online, Professors Mena, Lepaski, and Mr. Wright, if weighing in, please raise your hand and we're watching the screen. Okay. And I'm just looking at the screen, making sure I see the names and where they're at.
Mr. White, I think right now,
Yes.
as for me, I'm just absorbing everything.
Yes, ma'am,
So
understand.
I'm following along, but for me
Yes.
right now, it's just absorbing and listening to the questions. Oh, that's a good question. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. So I'm totally tuned in, sir, but at this point, I'm just absorbing.
Okay, understood.
Mr.
Yes,
Mark,
sir.
Can I make a suggestion that
Okay.
the pertinent section of the Texas Administrative Code be distributed to the members of the committee so they actually know what it is we're talking
You can do
about
that, yes.
and know what the baseline is it is going to be rolled into. This is our starting point.
Good idea. We will. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay, okay, with that, so for the committee meeting format, then, I think the idea is, because the most important thing for us to do now is the rules, okay? Is that, working with existing rules, working with the statute, I say Ms. Hartsfield and I, but primarily Ms. Hartsfield, okay, will have a draft document that we start with, okay? And then getting your meeting book ready or your meeting packet ready, you have time to look through that, okay? And do your markup. And then we just get around the table and we just get after it. And we just have a free flow discussion. And we just put information out there and put thoughts out there. And then Ms. Hartsfield probably does another markup where you see how it changed, what was added, what was deleted, you know, all of that. And then that's just how we work through that. And talking with Ms. Hartsfield the idea is that we work through in chunks, okay? Not necessarily that we rewrite the whole rule in one meeting, okay? But we get it in chunks so we get good quality efficiency as well. Dr. Hubbard, you have a point?
No, but I just got running too many random thoughts here.
Okay.
Again, thinking of the working in chunks and it's important because it's laid out in different sections that pertain to different things. We also have a pseudo time deadline of September 1, 2024. So at that time, all of the transition between the Anatomical Board and the Funeral Services Commission has got to be complete. That doesn't mean the committee's work is over, but we have to have all of these essential elements done by September 1 and done, not only done, but in place and operational by September 1 of 2024. So we have essentially a 9-month time frame to get this stuff done in.
Yeah, and when you look at that, and it's good you bring that up, Dr. Hubbard, because when you look at that timeline, you know, as far as getting a rule fully promulgated and up and going, that could be up to 6 months. So you're absolutely right. And not to get too out of sequence here, going forward, this meeting here is sort of like the quick basic training of Texas government, Texas advisory committees and all of that. We're all learning through this process, okay? And so we're gonna need chunks of time, okay? Maybe 3 to 4 hours at a time, okay? Going forward as we work through this. All right.
And I will say some of the sections are very, very simple. Some of them are just gonna be completely eradicated because they no longer are pertinent. Some are gonna require extensive discussion and revision.
Yes.
And so I think it'd be, important to give this document out as quickly as possible so the committee members can review it and understand this is where we are. These are things that are just gonna go away. These are things we need to focus on.
Okay, we can provide some assistance on that. Okay, and in some instances where it's just the commission, for example, will, make rules regarding the respect of the deceased. Okay, I think obviously we would probably have some suggestions, but we want to kind of, because the point is we want to draw from your expertise. Okay, we want to make sure we're not stifling that in any manner. All right, so we want to draw from your expertise, and then we want to be able to give our commissioners those markers of where we start. That discussion, and so that's important too. So we don't want to stifle your expertise and your past experiences in this policy space. And so that brings this in my introductory remarks here is this update on your point, the update on non-transplant anatomical donation organizations, anatomical facilities, and how that has worked as far as their authorizations, their registrations to operate in Texas, and those who have received authorization. And knowing that we have a few other agenda items to do on this in this meeting, here is the summation of this. The legislation is working. Okay, we are making new friends almost daily. New friends meaning anatomical facilities, and to a lesser extent, non-anatomical donation, non-transplant anatomical donation organizations. Just from my novice, and I'm a novice in this, Dr. Hubbard, just from my novice perspective, as I'm going through the draft of my legislative report for our commission to statewide leadership, I've come to the conclusion that practically every hospital, dental clinic, chiropractic clinic, medical clinic in the state of Texas could potentially be an anatomical facility. I'm looking at the applications are coming in, It may not be the ABC anatomical facility. It could be a hospital lab. It could be a doctor's clinic lab. And maybe they're going into some novel device technology, some novel operation technique that they need to get trained up on. And guess what? If they're getting tissue and specimens from a NATO or a well-body program, they are in this bill now, and they need to get the appropriate approval and inspection from the commission, formerly the SAB. And so when I'm looking at what's coming in, I'm saying I would have never thought that this is what, just listening at the legislative hearings and some of the other folks that we know that are in the space, I would have never thought it would be that person of this entity. All right. And so so you can think of the hundreds, if not thousands, of facilities where our doctors, our dentists, our forensic scientists, our chiropractors are doing their craft, doing their work, and needing to see patients in order to get the competencies or whatever they need in the research. That's throughout the state of Texas. Okay, and we're getting those applications daily, and that will have an impact as we're going to communicate with the legislature on because this commission is really concerned, has been since 1903, as with the state anatomical board since 1906. We have been very concerned about respect and decency of decedents and how that relates to next of kin and families in these communities. All right. And so if that's our commission standard for the last 120 plus years. Okay, then we have this legislation. And now we're looking at all these friends that we're making, and we know that there are going to be more out there. And then the idea is, how do we get into this? And how do we make sure that we have our arms wrapped around all of it? So so that's the update on that. So the legislation is working, and we are almost daily getting applications for anatomical facilities.
So if you're getting daily applications, what is the process of getting inspections scheduled and performed?
That's right. So we're still under the SAP rules, right? Okay. And so I believe under the current SAP rules, we want to review that application. Okay. There have been some applications that we've had to ask for more information, especially when it deals with air ventilation. Okay. And we're telling folks, I think you've probably heard this comment before. These are necessary provisions in rule. Okay. But they're not necessarily unattainable. Okay. So sometimes folks probably just don't know about the air ventilation scenario. It's something new to them. And we tell them to go back. Consult with your HVAC folks, and then they'll come back to us with an appropriate response. Okay. And then from there, I believe, according to our current SAP rules, we have about a 60-day window to get out there and make those inspections. So this is something that has really emerged since probably October. So we're not, we haven't gone beyond the 60 days yet. Okay. But
so the question, who then is going to go and do these inspections?
Okay. So on these inspections, everybody, especially the commission in general, is in a learning process. So as we did a few weeks ago with our current inspectors in the Texas Funeral Service Commission, we went out with yourself and another one of your colleagues on the state anatomical board, who very, very knowledgeable in these inspections, and we hope to do a few more rounds of those, right, Dr. Hubbard? So we're doing them together with the current SAB inspectors along with the current Texas Funeral Service Commission inspectors, gaining that familiarity and that those competencies moving forward.
So for everyone's clarification, current administrative code states that new facilities would be inspected by 2 members of the anatomical board.
Right.
And that essentially exists right now. We enjoined inspectors from the Funeral Services Commission so they can start learning about doing inspections. But with 16 members of the anatomical board, and I don't know the numbers, daily I'm kind of alarmed, do we have 10, 20, 40, 60 lined up? We've got to get word out to these board members, hey, you're going to be out and getting inspections done.
Right.
But the transition from anatomical board inspectors to funeral service commissions, is there any emergency rule provision or codicil that would allow leeway in that specific rule as to who can do inspections between now and September 1, 2024?
Well, and that's where my argument is that technically the state anatomical board is abolished, and it was abolished on September 1st, 2023. And so that rule conflicts with current statute, and therefore TFSC inspectors can conduct it, but we have to conduct it pursuant to the requirements set forth in SAB, State Anatomical Board rule, which is what we've been looking at. And so it does say that we need to adopt rules regarding establishing registration and inspection requirements and procedures. But until that is in place, we will be following the board, the anatomical boards.
All that we contest the fact that the board has been abolished. Effective September 1, 2023, we are abolished officially September 1, 24. When the Funeral Service Commission is able to act independently, then those duties from the anatomical board will no longer need to be done. But the anatomical board would exist as the effective overseer for these until Funeral Services Commission can provide those services on their own. So it's a gray area, it's a transition area there. So that's why I'm asking, we have the existing rule that stands. Is there an emergency provision? Can we say, hey, we need to supersede this 60-day process of rule change and allow maybe one anatomical member with one funeral service inspector to do these inspections?
That's really where you was going, and we've discussed that. And you did have an answer. That was about 2 weeks ago.
Well, and that was where it was because so in the bill, it says anatomical board is abolished but continues in existence until September 1st, 2024 for the sole purpose of transferring obligation, property, rights, powers, and duties to the Texas Funeral Service Commission. So and it also says that the Texas Funeral Service Commission assumes all the obligations, property, rights, powers, and duties of the anatomical board of the state of Texas as they exist immediately before the effective date of the act. So under that, since the anatomical board had the power to inspect, to me, that transfers over to the Texas Funeral Service Commission for our inspectors to go ahead and conduct the inspection. But to me, there's enough wiggle room in that transition language for us to work together to make sure our inspectors are trained, because it's the transferring of the obligation. So we've already received it.
We're getting training one SAB member that is acceptable. Okay.
That would be my
And
reading of that.
I think that's where you were going with your inquiry.
And in the second question, there may still be applications come to the anatomical board.
Yes.
So there's some coming to Funeral Services Commission. If something comes to the anatomical board for new facility, my presumption is I should forward that to Funeral Services Commission and go that direction and kind of excuse us from that process now.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And,
I got a phone call 2 days ago.
yeah, and because the idea is you and I talked, Dr. Hubbard. My impression is that the commission is your back office regulatory administrative arm. We're serving you. Okay, and now we still need to train up in the competencies and how to serve you. Okay, but that's what we're doing, and an idea to free up more of your time. I think you'll always still be involved with it, right? But to free up more of your time to do that work with our next generation of doctors and medical practitioners.
And we have been in a lot of physician offices, a lot of chiropractic clinics, a lot of hospitals. Some are better than others. But anyways, we'll continue on.
Yes, sir.
Could I ask a question? Who
Yes,
are
sir.
the current Texas Funeral Service Commission inspectors? Is there a list of 5, 10, 50, 100?
Yeah, yes, not 5, 10, 1,500, but they're on staff, okay? We do have at this time 3.
Okay.
And those are funeral service commission inspectors. We are not relying on committee members to do inspections, okay? We're relying on committee members to provide us the expertise and advisement on how to do the inspections, okay? But we're not requiring them to do the inspections. But with that said, Mr. Joel Hamrick, my chief inspector, Mr. Kyle Bass, and Mr. Rudy Villarreal.
Are we adding to that 3?
We are adding to that 3, and we do have the statutory authority along with the fiscal sustenance to do that. And there's a process in that, and we're continuing to talk about that with Dr. Hubbard. But so yes, we are adding to that as well. And as I said, with the scope that I'm looking at, okay, I do see a scenario where as a committee, definitely as the commission leadership, but as a committee, we need to ask the legislature for more resources, because the way I'm seeing this again, every dental, chiropractic, medical, forensic facility, hospital, okay, is a potential anatomical facility with our Texas families deceased patients in that facility. Okay, I mean, I'm looking at the applications. I have to assume that now. That if I'm passing by a doctor's office, that could be one. When I go to my chiropractor, I need to assume that it's something going on in there. Could be, okay? And so with that, we need to make sure we have the right resource package to answer the call.
In regards to Dr. Hubbard's statement of we have 60 days to get these inspected once the application comes in, obviously, if we're getting an incredible abundance of applicants all of a sudden with the new law going into effect, either A, we need to ask for an extension of 60 days, it's not gonna happen, or B, we're gonna need to get on this resource management quickly to be able to get a couple more inspectors.
I would say this, we can meet the 60-day, okay? If you look at the SAB, it's broken up into regions. On any given week, our inspectors are in those regions, okay? I think the challenge is, in my opinion, Dr. Ali, is it's a reason why it's obvious why there was a 60-day landing path. Because our SAB folks are also teaching and research faculty, okay? Contrary to my inspectors, they can just go, all right? So we have to sync up with their schedule. Some of us have been to college, and we understand right now, this is a very busy time when you're getting, what do you call these things? Final exams together and all that. So we will be syncing up. And I think we can get out there within the 60 days, but then understand at the same time, all this is unfolding or folding up. We're going to be getting rules out And it may not be 60 days, it may be 30 days, it may be 15 days. I'm gonna tell you, my chief inspector, Kyle Bass, he likes to get out to a new facility within a week. We'll see how that works, okay? All right, so so I think we continue to manage this, okay? And I think we'll be able to make that 60-day mark.
Now, one other comment related to existing rules versus moving forward. And on the new inspection of facilities form that y'all are circulating, there's a flat $500 non-refundable fee to
Yeah.
cover the cost of inspection.
And we're not taking that right now for a number of reasons, okay?
Well, that kind of, because in the administrative code, it says that the anatomical board will pay
Yeah.
for all inspection related costs.
Right.
So that was also related to this phone call. You know, are we gonna have to pay the $500? And I couldn't answer that
We
question.
can answer that question.
But we have the authority
Now,
to establish fees.
right,
Okay.
so I think the important point, again, respect and decency of our receiving people. And the overall protection of the public. So the important thing right now is to find out who these folks are. Get them on our list, get them in our Excel sheet, whatever that looks like, and know where they are, okay? And that they are on that list accepting tissue and specimen. And we've talked to very many of our new friends in the anatomical facility field especially, and we told them this may be the only time that government tells you they're not ready to take your money now. But as far as getting out and doing that inspection, and knowing where you are and getting you on the list, I think that's the important part. And respect, protecting the public. Obviously, we're gonna have to make sure that the fees and the funding matches what we're doing, okay, because there is a cost involved and I'm kind of still eating what I killed or what the legislative killed and sent me for this appropriation period. But at the same time, I'm looking at our mission as a commission and what is expected of us by our commissioners and the public, and that's the protection of the public. Not necessarily picking up a $500 check right now.
I can appreciate that.
Okay, all right. Yes, sir. Okay. Okay, we have some very important things we have to do before we end in about 45 minutes. And I'm looking here. What do you see, Miss?
One chat.
Well, understand the chat.
Oh, I just want to make sure it wasn't any of our
of
committee
our
members.
Okay, all right. Okay. And obviously our commissioners, we see our vice chair, Commissioner Sospansky, is on with us this morning. Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair.
Good morning. How are y'all doing?
Yes, yes. Do you have anything for us at this time, my friend?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Mr. Sospansky is our current vice chair of our commission. And thank you for being with us this morning, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Let's go ahead and do our election of a presiding officer of the committee. This is a requirement under the government code that you committee members select a presiding officer. And what does that mean? Is that when we're planning meetings, when we're getting meetings together, we are primarily staff is, coordinating with the presiding officer that you elect/select. Okay. And so let's go ahead and do that. And so at this time, I will leave it open to our committee members to open the floor up at this time for nominations.
You know, can we self-nominate? Is that a problem?
No, that's not a problem.
Instead of sitting here quietly.
That's not a problem.
I'd like to nominate myself to be the.
Okay, we have one nomination, Dr. Aaron Ali, formerly of the Calf Scout. Army Calf Scout.
There you go.
Okay.
Air cap.
Air Calf.
Here calves.
Yeah.
Jumped out of them.
Try not to. Try to land them.
We have any other nominations?
And I will be happy to serve if requested.
Okay, are you nominating yourself, my friend?
Sure.
Okay, okay, just want to check, just want to check.
I would be glad to serve as well.
Okay, we got 3 there. Okay,
Mr. White,
speaking.
who,
Yes,
who
Ms.
was
Bennett,
that?
Professor.
Who was that third person? I'm sorry.
Yes, Dr.
Hubbard?
Gilbert of Texas Tech.
Okay, I thought who was the third one?
Okay, we have Dr. Gilbert. I don't know if the camera is, could you raise your hand, Doc?
Yes, I see him. Uh-huh.
Okay, we've got Dr. Hubbard,
Okay.
okay, and we have Dr. Ali.
Thank you. I just needed clarity on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we have 3 nominations. Okay. Okay, 3 nominations and 7 votes. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. I always like to kind of see how this stuff rolls out. You got those 3 nominations down, Ms. Spartan?
I do.
Okay. All right, so I guess we'll get after a vote here. Okay,
Would it be helpful for, I mean, I know some of the folks, but some of the people on the committee I've not met and they
Okay.
don't know me. Would it be
yeah, we can do
helpful
that.
to talk
Yeah.
about
Yes,
why we're interested in
Yes,
and
yes.
what our qualifications are?
yes, yes.
I mean, I guess we're all qualified. We're on the committee.
Yeah, well,
And
About what the responsibilities are for the.
yes, according to the,
Tell us that first.
Yeah, maybe you can tell us.
Retract.
yeah, according to the government code, that's 2110. You look there, okay, they preside over, they're the presiding officer of the meeting. Okay. Definitely as staff does when we prepare for our commission meetings, we're primarily, working through our presiding officer. Okay, so we'll be working through the presiding officer as far as the agenda for the next meeting and the conduct of the next meeting. Okay, and that presiding officer is a spokesperson for this committee to the commission. Okay, and so those are the general responsibilities of the presiding officer.
Really it? I mean.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Just
I-
like report, so I mean, it may be where you, on behalf of the committee, the presiding officer might need to go to commission
Meetings.
board member meetings, to relay, kind of as the advocate or the representative, yes, like what Mr. White said, but that's, other than that, I mean, then the commission has the rulemaking authority to say what the task and I guess.
If
So.
it needs to be other tasks.
Mhm.
You know, so yeah, I think it would be beneficial for the 3 of you to kind of introduce yourselves probably more in depthly and how that would aid us in you being the presiding officer. And what we could do, we could just start with you, Dr. Gilbert, and then we could just come back around the horn here with Dr. Hubbard and then Dr. Ali.
That's what I get for making a suggestion.
No, we were probably gonna go there anyway, there's three of you, so, okay.
Well, my name's Dr. Kerry Gilbert. I'm a physical therapist by licensing and training. I'm a professor in the School of Health Professions at Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center and program director of the DPT program. Also serve as senior managing director for the Institute of Anatomical Sciences, which is the only institute of its kind in the state. Serve on the state anatomical board as one of the 16 board members and have so for a number of years. Was involved in the Sunset Commission process for the last 2 years in the state anatomical boards sunset process alongside of Dr. Hubbard. I think all of us probably it's assumed that we're here because we desire to serve the state of Texas in the protection and dignity and respect of our donors and our families. And so that's really the paramount reason why I would choose to spend my time here. Really, I think we have an opportunity ahead of us to build and develop fair and equitable and appropriate rules and regulations that will frame the use of our cadaver donors in the state. And I think we have an opportunity we haven't had in a long time to try to fix some of those things. And so there's new groups, new players at the table, and it's important that we look at all of those needs as we work through these rules and updates. I was part of the group that was working on Texas Administrative Code edits as part of the state anatomical board as we were preparing for sunset and new legislative process. We were asked to put those on hold as we went through sunset, but I'm familiar with those rules in regard to kind of what the process is. But so is everybody probably on the committee. So as an individual, I'm kind of a peacemaker by nature. So I'm fairly diplomatic and try to listen to people's opinions. And ultimately, though, this committee is going to have the charge to build and execute rules that are going to protect the dignity and respect of our donors and families. And so that's what I'm committed to. So I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Dr. John Hubbard, I'm a professor in the Department of Neuroscience, Experimental Therapeutics with the School of Medicine at Texas A&M University. I'm the elected chairperson of the Anatomical Board. I've served in that capacity for the past 6 years. One of the senior ranking members on the Anatomical Board just from length of time of appointment. I've been deeply involved in the last 2 legislative sessions, last 2 sunset reviews. I've probably been more involved than anyone else, not to toot my horn, but yeah, when the buck stops here, the buck stopped here.
Yeah.
Probably have as much in-depth knowledge of not only the existing rules, but the proposed rules and the reasons they exist. Also aware of the conflicts in rules between existing statute, new rules, the merging with the Funeral Services Commission. As part of my role in the faculty at A&M, I also am the individual in charge of administering our will body donation program, along with the supervision and instruction in our gross anatomy and neuroanatomy courses there. So we deal with not only donors, but families of donors on a frequent basis. This is our ultimate mission. Is to make sure that anyone who chooses to donate, not only the donor, but their families are assured that their bodies are going to be taken care of as intended. And this extends way beyond just donating to my facility, because whether they donate to my facility, Dr. Ali's facility, Science Care, it doesn't matter. We're all judged equally. If one of us acts inappropriately, it reflects poorly on all of us. So my commitment to our donors and their families is that everyone in the state of Texas is going to abide by an equal and equitable code. I will tell you that I will speak my mind. I try to be respectful at all times, and once a decision is reached, I will hold to that decision and make sure everyone else does too. I don't have to agree with the decision, but if this is the consensus, then that's the way we're gonna go. But thank you for your consideration.
Thank you,
Dr. Ali?
Thank you. Dr. Aaron Ali, I'm a active physician here in Austin, Texas. I've been here in Texas almost 45 years now. As a person who started an anatomical facility from scratch, and as a person who started one of the first ever Texas non-transplant anatomical donation organizations here in Texas from scratch, and also as a clinician who actually works in the OR with patients and innovators and scientists and researchers. It's something that I'm very passionate about. First of all, let me compliment Dr. Gilbert and Dr. Hubbard. I've worked with them for the last 2, 3, 4 years, many talks. They're incredible human beings, and they've done an incredible job for Texas itself. There's not a single bad thing I could ever say about the two of them. So I'm respectful. It's a great kind of dignity for me to be here next to you guys. So a big honor. The reason I put my name in the hat is, I kind of put myself in a neutral position. I don't run a university. I do all aspects of either talking to families whose loved ones have just passed away within hours, to the very final part of cremations and getting those back to their families, but also working with the researchers, the innovators, the students, charity events. This is something that needs to be done right and transparent and move quickly. I think there's a lot of things that need to be changed. I think some of the old rules and codes that we had were very biased towards universities because the Will Body programs were run by the universities. But now, as we see the state of Texas pushing into innovation and being one of the leaders in medical innovation, we need to have someone who's got perspective in all different facets of that. So that's one of the things I think I bring forth as strength, is to be able to look at multiple different perspectives, play a very neutral position when need to be, but also make a stance with what our rules are and executing the legislation that's been put out. As a person that was involved with the Sunset Review Commission and showed up at the state, gave my talks, did everything I could to help out. I think I wrote one of the few supportive letters of the SAB 2 years ago, and was happy to do that because of the great job you guys did. So hopefully being able to take that baton, moving forward with it, and making Texas the best place to push medical education and also honor and respect our decedents that passed their bodies to our programs. Thank you.
Okay. All right, members, committee members, do you have any questions of these 3 great nominees? Questions? Okay. All right. So now comes the cutting part. Okay. So ideally we would say that we need what, at least 4 out of 7. So I think on our first round, if no one gets 4, we'll take the top 2. We'll see how that works out. If we have a situation where we have 2-2-1, I don't know if we'll have that situation. That would be interesting. 2-2-2-1. That would be interesting. Okay. Yeah, yes, Commissioner. Okay.
I didn't know if someone made a motion. I love how
Okay.
you're calling it out on the floor like that.
Yeah. So ma'am.
I didn't know if someone just needed to make a motion, or if you're just gonna call it out like that on the floor. That's good.
That was just about, I was thinking all the permutations that could probably have happened. 2-2-2-1. Okay.
Like vote for speaker.
And that's what I thought too. Like, you go back to his rep days.
Okay. So at this time, does anyone want to make the motion, and we can open the floor up for
Make a motion for voting for
Okay.
presiding officer.
a second?
Second.
Okay, second. Dr. Hubbard.
Dr. Gilbert,
So yeah,
Dr. Gilbert.
well,
No, did both of them do it?
I think he was verbal. but he
Okay,
was- Yeah,
gotcha, sorry.
Okay.
Just to make sure we're clear on the notes.
okay. All right. So we're ready to count. Okay, and don't forget my 3 great committee members. I need to see your faces so I can see your hands. Paskey and Wright. Thank you. I need to see your face. Got it. Okay. Okay, and we'll just go 1, 2, 3, okay? Can I get a show of hands, supporting, Mr. Dr. Ali? One, I got two. I've got three. Okay. Three at this time. Dr. Hubbard. I've got one, I've got two, I've got three. Okay. And Dr. Gilbert. One, okay. Two, all right. That's it. Yeah, somebody voted twice. We're not supposed to be doing that.
Oh, you can't vote twice.
No, you can't vote twice, no, okay,
Forgot.
okay. Here you go. So it's one, okay. So how do you get eight? I said, here we go. You can have an election challenge. Yeah. Okay, so what I see here is that we have 3 votes for Dr. Ali, I believe 3 for Dr. Hubbard. And so we definitely need a majority, a sense of majority. So it's these 2 great gentlemen here. In our runoff, I did do. Is there any other questions that the members have of our, of Dr. Ali and Dr. Hubbard? Okay, so I guess we're ready to get on with it, okay? So we'll start here, start with you first last time, so this time I'll start first with Dr. Hubbard. Show of hands in favor of Dr. Hubbard. Got 1. I've got 2, I've got 3. That's correct, okay? All right, 3. Got you, Cody. And in favor of Dr. Ali. I've got 1, I've got 2, I've got 3, and I've got 4. Okay, Dr. Ali.
I think you wanted to hand that off, didn't you?
I was like, he didn't vote for himself. That's right.
Okay,
And I
so
respect Dr. Ali. I've interacted with him extensively for several years. Sometimes it's good to have new leadership. You know, I have every confidence in his professional, his personal acumen. You know, I have no qualms about supporting him going forward.
there you go, bro. Okay,
And if I may, I feel the same, Dr. Ali. I had to vote for one of the 2 of you. I know John a little better, and I know he's a bulldog and will keep us moving. And so I have no issue or concern submitting to your leadership on this committee and appreciate your willingness to serve. So.
and with that, as we said throughout, interviews and other discussions, this is going to be a team concept. Especially in the commission office right now, we're novices. And so we're picking up the phone to talk to any 7 of you on any given scenario. And to that extent, we're also listening to a lot of the stakeholders out in the public as well, okay? But this is a government code requirement that we do have a presiding officer. Congratulations, Dr. Ali, on this. And I have probably a lot more discussions moving forward. But with Dr. Hubbard being the current State Anatomical Board chair, we'll definitely be calling him every day. Okay. Calling and emailing him every day anyway. So with all of you, we're just as a commission, we're just very, very honored to work with each and every one of you going forward. And so you got the gavel, my friend. Conveniently, you were already next to me. So that helps out a lot as we go through the rest of our agenda. Okay. This time. And let's feel if there's any other discussion in the rulemaking process for the committee.
Ms. Hartsfield?
Yes.
I'd like to recognize you, any review proceedings, rulings.
I don't think there's nothing on the rulemaking process.
Okay. cover that. Okay, so go ahead and recommendations for agenda.
Okay. I'd like to open it up to the committee for recommendations on agenda items for next committee meeting. Sure, we all have a whole bunch.
It seems like the primary would be to perhaps have a draft ready to discuss at that next meeting. Is
Okay.
that reasonable?
Okay.
I don't know when that meeting's gonna be, but
Here, may I
Go ahead.
but okay, so like he was saying, we had talked about maybe instead of just doing the entire draft, and I will work on all of it, and it also depends on what our next committee meeting is. I thought was maybe doing it in chunks so we can focus our attention, so if we want to get all the best practices, like on the administrative parts, like, on what the commission needs to be doing to make sure that we have good actors and we're keeping out bad actors, or some of those more operational parts, and then move to the, and then maybe and I think it also depends on how many hours we have in each meeting. If we're able to get 5 or 6 hours, I think we can knock out a huge chunk. If it's just gonna be 2 hours here, 2 hours here, then there's no way we'll be able to do it.
And I think the 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours, I think it's going to stifle the quality expertise. So, the counselor has said, 5 to 6, I think at least 4. Okay, we block it to get at least 4-hour blocks. And the point is, if we get drafts to you, where you can review them and mark them up yourselves, and then we get around the table and/or Zoom and get the draft, a refined draft, if such thing exists.
And I might recommend 6 hours, because if we're gonna take a whole day to come here, I just
Okay.
couldn't spend a whole day getting things done.
Okay,
A lot of us are gonna travel to get here,
okay,
but there are some things that have to be taken care of rather urgently.
okay,
Whether this is related to the transition or to establishing rules, such as the process of registering facilities, the process of inspecting and approving facilities, the process of reestablishing the website, the process of registering donors, registering transfers. Those are immediate needs that have to get done.
So I'm gonna ask a quick question on
Yes.
that. Under current anatomical board rules, because I'm assuming most of this is a conflict with statute, do you think we have that sufficient to hold off until we can create? No, okay. So here's what I would ask for me on. I know we'll probably get, I mean, I would like to see the draft that y'all had worked so hard on, but if you could help identify specific holes at least until we can get a whole set where I can help get all that together, that will help me.
Specifically with registration, because the existing TAC rules are well antiquated. They were voted out several years ago, but never made it to the Texas Registrar. So we are now on the administrative code, we're still having a 4-part paper form. In actuality, we're registering on the Anatomical Board website. The Anatomical Board website is being transitioned to the Funeral Services Commission. So this whole process of registration, knowing who these donors are,
And we're keeping, you're talking about registration of
the
donors.
donors,
Oh,
and registration of
okay,
facilities, but registration of donors is a paramount concern.
okay.
There was a rule revision allowing the computer, but again, through administrative issues, it never made it to the Texas Registrar to be completed.
yeah. Can I treat that for a moment?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so starting in March, okay, and starting in March, and that's why I was glad you were here today, because we can discuss some of this after the meeting. Starting in March, Tyler Technologies, also known as Tyler Tech for short, working with the Health Professions Council, this committee, the commission as a whole, will be starting to lay out that technology piece. Okay, that's part of the piece that you're talking about. And so with that, I think one thing Health Professions Council, to what you're saying, what they're asking for is you know, the access to the information that you have now, you and I need to close the loop on that because they circled back with me late last week, wanting to know how we're going to affect that transfer, that look. So that is the technology piece that I'm gonna probably have to drag you up here a lot for that. We'll be working with our technology folks at HPC to lay out, okay? And because I told them, we just can't go with a layout of the piece and then turn it on 1 September. We're gonna need time to sit down with your funeral directors, especially in your facilities. How do they get on? How do they do the transactions? How do they register in those donors? So absolutely, and it starts, you and I'll talk after the meeting. It starts with getting that access to the current information.
But the priority to that is, are we gonna let technology dictate how we operate, or are we gonna establish the rules that they will formulate
Well,
the
yeah,
website?
it's the rules,
Right.
okay? And it's also the engagement with the folks that'll be behind that computer every day. Not only the folks in the staff in the commission, but your funeral directors at the will body programs, okay? So it will be the rules, but I know that request was made, I think, sometime in November. I sent a note to you, say, hey, you know, we need to look at this information transfer. So let's have that discussion, but to your point, you know, Tyler Tech is, that time is getting close to us, and so we get.
I think it's paramount that we have a groundswell of rules that
Yes.
the technology folks are
Yes.
going to be able to adhere to.
Yes.
Mr. White, may I add, because we've kind of done that already with the commission, like there's been some updates we've been looking at where I'll work with our licensing department and our IT to make sure as I'm drafting the rules that it's feasible with what they're, and I've had to make some tweaks so that it's practical but still accomplishing what we need to. So we'll definitely involve.
And so they're definitely want to look at that. And HPC is also in that loop of looking at the rules and looking at how these work. And you and I have talked about this, Dr. Hubbard, as sort of technology analogies, you know, our donors, how that would analogize to maybe a licensee or a facility, but it's all of that. So you're absolutely right. Is the rules will drive the technology, and the technology is the administrative efficiency multiplier.
Because I've unfortunately experienced technology driving process.
Okay.
And that doesn't always work.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Just on the topic of what the agenda items will be, as was so clearly written in our public acts part, that we have to have the exact agenda items to be able to talk about those, right? So obviously, we're talking about application process, we're talking about donor process of how they get on the site and be able to donate. We're talking about inspection process. And when I say application process, anybody who wants to be an anatomical facility or a NATO or a new will body
The
program.
entity application.
Correct.
process.
So entities, and then there's donor application process and how they engage the state and the commission and how they want to donate through.
And to Dr. Hubbard's point, and I think he's looking at this in a very novel, linear way. Registration of the donors, which leads to transfer of specimens between will body programs. But I think what he's also thinking, along with Dr. Ali, is look at the sequence. You know, you get the registration of the donors, we get that rule tight, then that feeds into obviously decency and respect of the decedent and all of that. How you get into that arrangement, if you want to be a donor, if you're the family, then how does it get to the will body program? Then how is it translated, you know, the transfer of specimens,
Tracking.
right?
Well, just the
Yes.
whole algorithm, how the
That's
process
right, it
works from,
works.
hey, I want to do this to, okay,
Yes.
you've got this going, but also the technology, interacting with technology with our rules and administrative code that we're trying to build out here, right?
So your kickoff would be, if we kind of get to that, then we're actually helping our technology folks.
Right.
Okay.
And to add on to Dr. Ali, we all have our own separate donation forms. There is specific language in SB 2040 that is an addendum to all forms that we're either gonna have to get a universal form, or you can keep your own form, but this has to be attached to it.
So that's one of the statutory requirements is that we, or we meaning the commission, but as the board, the committee, sorry. They have to establish rules for the design and adopt a form that, will body programs and NATOs must use as a donor acknowledgement of informed consent of what they were discussed. So I don't think I think there's gotta be at some point, some universal form that every NATO and will body program uses, but I'll double check.
Maybe that's another topic on our agenda is forms and applications or forms and documents. I should
Because
say.
each of these educational entities has their own legal department that approves their own documents. Science Care has their own documents. Lifetree has their own documents. They're all legal, legitimate documents. Do we have to have a generic document, or can we continue with our documents with the legislative provision inserted into them? So that's a decision we're gonna have to make fairly quickly as well. So.
Okay, so, hearing you. And, your line of thinking, Mr. Chair and Dr. Hubbard, on probably where the first line of scrimmage is with the registration form, how does that look as a rule? Okay, and probably where we get to that first meeting, probably where we need to kind of start.
And there is a section in the administrative code that deals with registration and transfers.
Okay, all right.
Already, so that would be a starting place, and I can't quote verbatim the actual section of administrative code, but I can point it out to you.
And then we have the statute.
Right, well, and so going back, so the statute does say that the commission by rule shall design and adopt a form that complies with this subsection that will body programs and NATOs must use, and that is where the donor is informed, like where it talks about the donor must provide informed consent by signing a will, and they have to show what their intent is, and then this is what has to be on the, I guess, generic form. The donor's acknowledgement that the donor was informed about the consequences of the donation before providing consent, to use the donate plans for the donated body parts, and if applicable, any body part and the condition in which the body part will be returned to the person designated by the donor. And per state statute, that part has to be on a universal form.
All right. Mr. Chair, we have a hard stop at 12 and we're about 13 minutes off. I've heard 4 hours or 5 hours. The staff would need some help in identifying those dates, okay, where we could get that time. Also, Mr. Chairman, consistent with Texas Government Code 2110, that's where you're at. Texas Government Code 2110. An advisory, and we'll put this on the record, an advisory committee, as far as the committee members being reimbursed for travel, that has to be in the agency, would be the commission, External Service Commission. It has to be in our bill, our funding pattern, or we have to get special budget execution authority from the legislature, from LBB through the legislature. Well, we've checked, we've rechecked, talked to LBB, we've talked with other legal minds. There was not an appropriation for reimbursement of travel for our committee members, okay? And it wasn't in our appropriation, and we haven't received any budget execution authority. So we will maintain the option, obviously, to be revoked, okay? But I needed to put that out there, and one time in the future, you could point at me and look at me crazy, but I'm not in the legislature anymore. Yes, sir.
And I understand we're short of time. Before I make my comment,
Yes.
we do have a scheduled anatomical board meeting in Lubbock at the Institute of Anatomical Sciences on April 26th
Mhm.
that you're all invited to. The board generally hosts a dinner the evening before, but this would be the last formal meeting of the anatomical board, and we would like to be able to introduce
Okay.
the commission, the commissioners, the committee members, if they're able to attend in person or remotely. Secondly, there are funds available from the anatomical board that could be transferred to Funeral Services Commission and potentially earmarked as reimbursement funds. They're anatomical board funds. There is a provision in Texas Administrative Code
Okay.
that anatomical board members and any essential personnel would be reimbursed for travel.
Now, the executive director is not gonna argue with you on that. You and me, you and I, we need to get on the phone with these LBB people, okay?
This is autonomous from LBB.
Oh,
The Texas Anatomical Board is exempt
okay.
from the LBB
I'm not gonna
regulations.
fight you on this. I'm not gonna
We
fight
have
you.
our own
Yeah.
account.
Okay.
We were exempted from
Okay.
it.
I'm not gonna fight you on it. I'm not gonna fight you on it, but you and I are gonna get on the phone with Jeb Bell, okay? But I'm gonna be in this foxhole with you on it, okay? But we go.
Because there were special legislative statutory provisions exempting the anatomical board from the legislative budget board authorization because we were not appropriated
That's
any
right.
budget from the legislature.
I get it,
So we have autonomous funds.
okay? And we're gonna talk about those autonomous funds, but I'm gonna be in the foxhole with you. You gonna be in that on that phone. We're gonna do that probably today.
I'm gonna be with First Cabin, man.
Because,
Because, you know, we've got to be honest about this. There are going to be extensive meetings
yes,
and the travel is required
okay,
and there's expenses.
okay, I agree. That's why I said I'm gonna be in the foxhole with
Okay.
you, but let's get consistent. Because, you know, I was kind of, even before I called you about it, that's where my head was on this. But we got this information, so I'll fight on the persuasion with you, okay? All right.
Make sure we get a nod.
Now, I'm a tightwad, guys. I'm a tightwad.
You see your snacks over there, water and nuts.
We have recognized the commitment that attendance is
I
going to
agree.
require.
Okay, I agree. Okay,
So.
let's you and I make that one of the housekeeping things you
All
and
right.
I do today. So,
But
yes, go ahead.
would it be possible to just set a day each month, the third Monday, the fourth Tuesday
So-
of each month?
So let's do this here. Usually the way we do it, I'm just, you know, because I kind of looked at how the availability came in. I got a lot of busy people doing a lot of great stuff around the state. Okay, all right. So let me get that Excel grid sheet up. Okay, and let me put the working days for December. Now, I think I may need 2 or 3 more attorneys. Okay, so I only got one attorney too, okay, and she has been a rural manufacturing machine, okay? And so I've got to give her and her team some, you know, some leeway on getting ready, okay? So let me look at some days, okay? And I've got a week in mind. Okay, we have a commission meeting coming up, okay, in a couple of weeks. But I've got some days in mind, and I'll just get them out there and just see where you are at. And to your point, it'll be like, I don't know, 3rd week in December, where are you at? Okay, and then we'll go from there, okay?
Mr. White?
Yes.
May I make a proposal?
Yes,
So what will also help me with the draft is, and this is open to the public, this is whoever, if especially for if you
What
operate in
public-
multiple states.
Probably can't respond.
No, they can't respond, but like, so, since we were trying to set Texas up to be the best in this field, if you see best practices from other states or even in this state that you would think should continue, my email is on our website. Feel free to email me those ideas. And then if the committee members want, if there's any other, well, I guess what we need to know now, are there any other priority items that we must address at the next rule meeting so I can focus my attention on drafting those relevant?
Can you list out?
We deleted it.
No, cause I can do that. What I need to know are what is top priority that that we need to get in place as soon as possible to help with the efficient and I will read it, operating of the commission and as it relates to anatomical facilities, non-transplant anatomical donation organizations, and who I'm missing, will body programs. So what I have listed, hang on, are,
And one thing to think about is some of the points that Doctors Ali and Hubbard have brought up. The priorities that will get our technology folks in line, okay?
okay, so right now, this is for all committee members. So as you listen to this, if there's anything that I'm missing that you think, we need to turn our attention to ASAP, please speak up. So I have the application process for entities, or I added authorized for persons authorized to receive and use donated cadavers or anatomical specimen, because it could be a doctor, not just an entity. And then I have now I gotta read my chicken scratch. Hang on. Right, the donor registration process. And then the inspection process for approving facilities or individuals. Hold on, because I want to make sure I have this for later.
I would recommend the use of the term entity, which is what you used above.
What did I
Inspection
say?
of
Did I say
entities.
that?
You said individuals or facilities. It may include a will body program, which might be considered an entity.
But I may just use persons because that includes all of it per our statute, because the persons is a corporate. I just have to make sure we are including individuals, but yes, I'll do entities or persons. And then I've got the rules regarding the transfer of a donor from one entity, individual to an authorized entity or individual to another. So that's basically covering the sequence of the.
Donor specimen pathway.
Yes,
Okay, that works. Hang on, donor.
specimen pathways.
Specimen.
What that's going to do, it's going to, glad Dr. Hubbard brought this up, it's going to give our technology folks the pathway to get this technology piece done.
Sarah, that should be your next topic item, is technology integration.
Okay, well, real quick, so to go back on the donor specimen pathway, I think I'm also gonna extend that to the tracking process or chain of custody. Process, 'cause I also think chain of custody might be what's in the statute. And then. I'm sorry, what did you?
Technology integration.
Technology,
I'll speak to anything technology driven by our rules.
integration. Process,
It's in two sections of the code.
That's
So
right.
what did you
the
say?
majority of what you're talking about is in two sections of the code already.
Sounds good, and then,
So we go there.
and then I've got communications to donor and donor families. And I think that's also where and then the forms used,
Forms and documents, right?
forms and documents used. Okay, anything else? That sounds like you think all think we should cover?
I don't know, we didn't talk about fees, but that one isn't critical right this moment, but it would be.
Because right now, under rule, y'all have a fee schedule,
Well,
correct, or no?
well, going forward, when you talk about the donor specimen pathway,
Mhm.
that's where the legislation gets into our fee making.
So
But
But also the
these would be
inspection process,
secondary
the
to
application
what we're
process.
talking about now.
Yeah.
Because there are registration fees or transfer fees, but there are other proposed fees that's just a whole nother topic.
Right.
How about a discussion of fees current and
Sounds good, current and new fees based on new.
That can be the last of the list.
Yeah, on the priority list, that'd be the
Yeah, I'll just put it
Yeah,
in
that-
last.
if time. allows. And one of the things I was thinking about, if it was a 6 hour thing, then 3 in the morning, we break for lunch for an hour, and then come back at 3 in the afternoon, start at 9, 12 o'clock, take a lunch from 12 to 1, 1 to 4.
Food.
We'll look at that. Hey, we're,
That time process works to get around and get home.
Mr. Chairman,
That day.
we're at 12 o'clock.
Yes, sir.
If there's nothing else, because we did promise people at 12 o'clock. So you can.
Yes, sir. Well, we're at the end of our 12 o'clock hour, so if there's any other topics that need to discuss, please say so. Otherwise, we're going to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, you want, that's one, a motion. I mean, Dr. Hubbard may want to stay anywhere.
Like to get a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Got it
Second.
to Dr. Hubbard and Dr. Kelly.
Meeting adjourned. Good.
That's incredible power there.